stitched away. This man said it's gruesome that someone so handsome should care. Na, 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 na. This charming man. This charming man. A drummed-up country boy who never knew his place. He said, return to me. He knows so much about these things. He knows so much about these things. He knows so much about these things.
When I first heard the Smiths demo tape, well, I had that kind of feeling, you know. You couldn't immediately say, oh, well, of course, they've been listening to the Velvet Underground or the Doors or somebody like that. It did seem to be something which had just arrived, which is one of the wonderful things that happens in pop music, you know, is the fact that things suddenly spring full-armoured from the ground. Probably another misquote, but, I mean, you know what I mean, and appear to have not been influenced by anything that's preceded them.
They've given rock music an Englishness that no other group has, not even the Beatles. Because the Beatles were singing in American accents, by and large. And one could say, yes, you know, they did all this and they brought in this Liverpudlian accent, and the Rolling Stones tried this Cockney thing, the Sex Pistols tried this, you know. I think the Smiths are the first group to have perfectly integrated this form to a point where they are the first real, you know, the first great pop group. The first great English pop group, the first original pop group. I mean, that's going to get, you know, really, I'm really putting myself on the line there. But I think at the end of the day, in 10 years' time, and I stake what remains of my critical reputation on this, but in 10 years' time, the Smiths will be viewed in the same way that the Beatles are now viewed.
I feel the Smiths create their world. And not many groups do that. In much the same way, if you like, as people like George Formby created their world. And the Smiths create their own environment. And you can either go in, or you can say, no, I want Diana Ross instead. And it's your choice, really.
So I broke into the palace with a sponge and a rusty spanner. She said, I know you and you cannot sing. I said, that's nothing, you should hear me play piano. We can go for a walk where it's quiet and dry and talk about precious things. But when you're tied to your mother's apron, no one talks about frustration. We can go for a walk where it's quiet and dry and talk about precious things like love and war and poverty. We can go for a walk where it's quiet and dry and talk about precious things. But the rain that flattens my hair,
The Smiths came together quite by accident, really. It just suddenly happened, which sounds almost unbelievable, but it really did. It really did happen in a very sudden, very casual way. The meetings between the group members was very, very accidental, almost. And it was also at a very barren time in 1982 when everybody seemed to be lost and the vile elements were taking over and everything was, music was just horrendous, and it was very synthetic and it was very fake, and it was, the pop star was back and the regimented pop star was back, and the punk ideals for the first time seemed to be totally dead, really.
I think it just needed some kind of kick in the face the music scene at the time, because I think there's like the Human League, you know, Orchestral Manoeuvres, a lot of groups like that were just churning it out. I mean, it was like, okay, yeah, that's okay, but there was nothing that was with sort of like intense, no kind of intensity.
We've got all these synthesizer duos and all kind of with mixing metaphor, really corny as hell metaphorical lyrics with 18-syllable names. I mean, so we just went, and because we understood all that totally, and because, as I say, I've been involved in it to an extent and observed it in London, we just turned the whole thing around. We called ourselves the Smiths, and then Morrissey took it into his own sphere totally, on top of the pops with National Health glasses, flowers out the back of his trousers, and standing up for the Gork.
Because the years previous to the Smiths were quite dank for me, I could see this as my absolutely, perhaps sole key opportunity to do something constructive and to do something worthwhile. So therefore, when the time came to actually mount the stage, it was almost as if this strange forceful character completely took over and just... I actually stayed in the wings almost. And it was... Ultimately, I feel that that was really the natural me. Because most people feel that when you go onto a stage, you act or you develop some kind of character. But I tend to do that when I'm off stage. And when I'm on stage, I can relax and just be the normal me. Whatever that may be, the abnormal me, perhaps.
So what difference does it make? Oh, what difference does it make? Oh, it makes none. But now you have gone, and your prejudice won't keep you on tonight. Oh, the devil will find work for idle hands to do. I stole and then I lied just because you asked me to. But now you know the truth about me, you won't see me anymore. Well, I'm still fond of you. Oh. But no more apologies. No more apologies. Oh, I'm too tired. I'm so sick and tired, and I'm feeling very sick and ill today. But I'm still fond of you. Oh.
I mean, on the face of it, we wanted to ditch everything that people superficially think is rock and roll, leather trousers and long hair and drugs. But the most important thing of aspects of the rock and roll, i.e. the gang mentality, with something exclusive to say, and arrogance, was our forte and still is.
A sort of video. I took one look at Morrissey. I was sitting at the tea table at the time, and I couldn't believe it. This emaciated man hurling flowers about the place with this fantastic, you know, pale features and chiseled jawline, you know. I thought, he's for me.
It's like sometimes if something's happened and you can go up to your bedroom, put the Smiths on, and you think, oh, well, thank God I've got Morrissey. Morrissey's still with me. He's like still saying them words to me. He's still there. And like even whatever happens, no matter what you're being through, Morrissey's always there to comfort you. He's always there to come out your speakers and sing to you.
I wouldn't want to characterise a typical Smiths fan, but you could say that there were certain things that they would be interested in, like being different, like perhaps being rather more solitary. And those are perfectly honourable, worthwhile things.
Well, male, as you say, late teens, lonely, dejected, failed in love, you know, very nervous, no confidence whatsoever. A box bedroom rebel. That's basically it, the stereotype. And that's not me. I don't think I'm a boy anyway.
In a live capacity, the audience seems to be predominantly male. And it seems it can be a very celebratory event, almost violent, very, very wild, which I'm quite happy about, because I think people don't really have many opportunities in life to let themselves go slightly and express themselves and step out of themselves and so on and be a little insane.
There is a light that never goes out. Yeah, I mean, this is a song. I mean, and every night that I saw them play live, people were singing along to this song. They would go completely haywire. I mean, and the actual lyrics are a kind of, you know, a invitation to a sort of a double suicide.
Has this very strange sense of humour, not a morbid sense of humour, but it's so straight, and he can say things so seriously, and yet maybe behind it all it's quite the opposite. And I think a lot of people totally misinterpret, totally, whatever he says and things he does. People, they choose to see, yes, the Smiths as being very morbid and maudlin and, you know, very northern and gloomy, and yet they're not. I mean, lots of Johnny's guitar playing is really jubilant and very celebratory. It's really beautiful. Lots of their music, when I hear it, it's really uplifting. I
mean, on more than one occasion, I've actually laughed out loud at Smith's lyrics, and I don't often do that. I don't often laugh out loud at anything much. And I think that they're very funny lyrics, and I cannot understand why people assume that what they do is essentially miserable. I suppose because there are a lot of references to kind of death and pain and so forth in the lyrics, but again, it's done in the same sort of way as like books like The Loved One, you know, where it's sort of ironic, really. And I don't see them as being miserable at all. I get rather cross when people tell me they are.
I dreaded sunny days, so I'll meet you at the cemetery gates. Keats and Yeats are on your side.
Morrissey and I, quite often, he'd just telephone and he'd say, oh, let's meet somewhere. We used to go walking on fine, sunny afternoons to Southern Cemetery in Manchester.
So we go inside and we gravely read the stones. All those people, all those lives, where are they now? Oh, with love and hate and passions just like mine. They were born and then they lived and then they died. Seems so unfair, I want to cry.
It was very peaceful and beautiful, but it wasn't done in any sort of morbid sense. Talking about it now seems quite strange, but at the time it seemed very natural. Or we'd go wandering in Moss Side and just hours and days wandering, just the two of us, you know, together but very alone at the same time. It's like extremely intimate but then extremely sort of very separate. We were always quite separate at the same time.
The death of a disco dancer. Well, it happens a lot round here. And if you think peace is a common goal, that goes to show how little you know.
Well, we did, quite often go out. We said, let's, go out tonight. And there'd be all these sort of hairdressers in wonderful clothes, and they all look so happy, and they'd be dancing, drinking. Morris and I just sort of sat there like we're at a funeral.
I never talk to my neighbour, I'd rather not get involved.
I mean, we would follow people around, sort of like little lambs, sort of looking at them saying, oh, aren't they beautiful? And like, we were looking through a window at somebody. He'd say, do you think they're really happy? And I'd say, well, I think so. I hope so. And he'd say, well, can we ever be like that? Could I ever be like that? And of course not. No, he can never be happy. I pray to God that one day he's happy, but you know, it's taking a long time coming.